If you were 2-7, you'd be in a bad mood too.
Whoa, he has trouble with the snap, and the ball is free. And he hits the upright again. That's impossible.
Get your mouth shut. Get your mouth shut. Jerk.
The Bears' season's going to end on a double doink.
If worms had machine guns, then birds wouldn't be scared of them.
Hey everybody, welcome to the Word Hole presentation of the Limp Ditka's podcast. I'm Pete.
I'm Ryan. Welcome to the Limp Ditka's podcast. We have a fantastic show. Monumental news with my Detroit Lions. Disappointing news with the Dallas Cowboys. Big win for the Notre Dame Fighting Irish, and a huge win for the Michigan State Spartans.
Can't count the Sparties out just yet.
I don't know what to think about this. We'll get into that.
They're my top 6 this week now. I'm just kidding.
Yeah. Yeah, we will go over our LDP top 6 and compare that to the college football rankings. An interesting show on Tuesday night that I have lots of comments about. And yeah, we've got some shit you couldn't make up. And of course, to finish the show, we will have Pete's upset specials, who you are on a fucking roll these days. So you kids out there, if you want to make some money, listen to Pete over there. So yeah, let's jump into the news. The biggest news of the week, I think we can clearly say, is the firing of the Detroit Lions general manager, Bob Quinn, and their head coach, Matt Patricia. I had predicted this on the previous episode, number 6. I thought it was going to happen the day after Thanksgiving. It happened 2 days after Thanksgiving, so I was way off.
Wrong.
Yeah, I was way off. I was impressed. Sheila Ford Hamp, the newish owner, or at least the new face of ownership for the Detroit Lions, did what she said she was going to do. She, before the season, demanded that the Lions be contending for playoff position late into the season, and by late November it was obvious that was not going to happen, and she did not waste any time and unceremoniously jettisoned their failure of a general manager and their complete dickhead of a head coach. Basically, there were no allies of Bob Quinn, or especially Matt Patricia, by the end. There was no one that was unhappy or didn't understand why they were fired. They were literally incompetent, and at the same time they were arrogant, which is a horrible failing combination. Bob Quinn, I thought had started out having some potential.
Is that Bob Quinn, Medicine Man?
Yeah, the Medicine Man. I had some hope when he first started the Lions. Coming from the successful Patriots organization, which we have learned is a total fraud. Do not hire anyone. Do not hire any coaches or general managers from that system. Please stop. Everyone stop. Leave the Pirates organization be. Did I say Pirates?
Yeah, that's fine.
Patriots. I had some faith in, like I said, in Bob Quinn coming in. I thought he made some interesting picks going forward, but he started with an inherited coach in Jim Caldwell, and they had winning records. There's a lot of debate in Detroit whether Jim Caldwell should have ever been fired. It's an old debate that we can probably stop talking about because he was fired many years ago, 3-4 years ago.
Debate. Yeah.
So I'm kind of done with that conversation. We need to move forward, figure out where we need to go. Matt Patricia, on the other hand, when he was hired, came in, like I said, like a complete dickhead. I call him Sideshow Bob and the arrogant Slob. Patricia, he just is besides being morbidly obese, which I probably shouldn't hold against people, and his unkempt look, scraggly hair, beard, all that. He came in.
Oh, are you judging me too? Jesus.
Yeah, you're light years from Matt.
I didn't
Patricia.
know I was on trial here, Ryan, for my beard and my hair.
But you don't have a pencil behind your ear constantly.
No, I don't.
That's one just annoying thing. His trademark was the pencil behind the ear while he's on the sideline with a laminated sheet in front of a play sheet. Like, what is the pencil going to do for you at any moment here where you have no paper anywhere near you? It's like, he just looked and acted like a fraud from the beginning. And that's exactly how it proved to be. So like I said, I'm excited he's gone. His record ended up being 13-29-1, I believe. Ooh, the final.
Yikes.
There's just no doubt the right move was made. I guess the better move would have been having them both fired at the end of last season, so that this year wouldn't have been a complete waste of time like it has become, because a lot of people, including myself, were calling for that. Unfortunately, I didn't have a podcast at that point, so there's no record to prove or disprove that. But like I said, the good news is they're gone. The Lions can move forward. Darrell Bevell is taking over the offensive coordinator. That's the interim coach. There's been lots of speculation as to who the new head coach could be going forward. I think the more important question is who's the general manager going forward, because that's you hire the general manager who then hires the head coach. So we can speculate all we want about who the head coach should or shouldn't be, but the general manager needs to be in place first, and then more about their philosophies, and then you can judge their decision based on that.
Right.
General manager, that's a tough one. People like to speculate on the head coach because there's those potential
that's
coaches.
easier. Yeah, that's kind of easier.
Yeah, those candidates, offensive coordinators, defensive coordinators around the league, the hot name. So it's a little harder. We'll get into that, but it's a little harder with the GMs. The name gets thrown out a lot is I'm drawing a blank. We'll have to edit this out. Louis Riddick, of course, from ESPN. I'm a fan of his, just as his work on ESPN. I think he's a knowledgeable contributor to all of their NFL stuff. He's a former player, former front office executive with the Eagles, I believe. So he's got the experience, but I think so much of his hype is just because he's on TV all the time. People really like him, and I think I like him too. I'm not sure if that necessarily translates into today's NFL.
Right.
He's got opinions on stuff, and I appreciate his opinions, except the big red flag I have is he's gone on record several times saying the problem with the Lions is who's surrounding Matt Stafford. It's not Matt Stafford. It's just everyone that's around him. And that's literally the same philosophy that Bob Quinn has had and all previous GMs, is trying to get Stafford more and more weapons. And clearly that has failed. Whatever that strategy is, it does not work. I do not want a new GM that continues that same strategy, because we have learned it does not work. Matt Stafford, for whatever reason, despite his character, he's a great guy. Despite his stats, despite his incredible arm, he's not a winner. He's simply not a winner. He cannot win in big situations. He never comes through is the bottom line. I've ranted about this before, but if I have a GM that says he wants to build around Matt Stafford, who is aging again, that is not the direction I want to go. One interesting hypothesis thrown out there, and I haven't.
Yes.
I don't know that it's legit or a real potential, but a name I'd like to see interviewed.
Ryan Pace?
No, that would be Tony Dungy.
Ooh, I like the sound of that.
Yeah, and
as the GM,
right?
The GM. He's a great football mind, and I think he could build a solid program there.
The other part of it, it's not really widely known, is he's from Michigan. He's from Jackson, Michigan, just south of Lansing. So he grew up a Lions fan. So
everybody knows that.
Okay, sorry. I don't know how insular my knowledge base is.
I'm kidding. I had no idea.
Okay. So there is a connection at least. So it's not just out of left field. I'm not just throwing a name out there. I think there might be. I have no idea if he has any interest in it, or if he has interest in being a GM. Would he want to be the GM of the fucking Detroit Lions? I don't know. He may, just because he's from Michigan, or maybe because he needs a new project. Maybe he has no interest in anything like that. But I thought that'd be a fun at least to hear that they had gone in that direction.
Yeah. I could see him having interest in it from it's obviously going to be a challenge for whoever takes over. And I don't mean that in like as sarcastic as it sounds, but like for a guy like Dungy, wow, what a great piece to add to his resume, in that not only did he take Tampa to the Super Bowl and win with Trent Dilfer as freaking quarterback, but he also,
Indianapolis
Lions, Indianapolis, and then he turns the Lions into winners. That would be like the cherry on top of the impressive NFL Sunday. So
that's what I'd be hoping would be like the caveat, the carrot out there for him, like a new challenge where he'd be interested in something like that he hasn't done before. So maybe that's piqued his interest for a long time. I don't know that, but one other candidate that has been thrown out there for GM, which is, I have to admit, I like it on the surface, but upon further inspection, it doesn't really work in general. But that name is Chris Spielman, and I like that name because he's one of my favorite Lions in history, linebacker throughout the 90s.
That sounds like Matt Millen to me all over.
Well, and that's the argument. Yeah, is this just literally another linebacker pulled into a front office? TV personality pulled into a front office.
Yeah. And
I've said many times I refuse to speak that name ever again. But you brought it up, Matt Millen. Those are the alarm bells that go off immediately. So I'm glad you picked up on that, even without suffering the trauma of being a Lions fan your whole life. So that the reason his name comes up again, because he's a TV personality, a beloved Lion. So he has obvious connections. He is a Lion for life. He still loves the Lions. You hear him talk about it all the time. So the interesting thing, his brother Rick is actually the GM of the Minnesota Vikings. So
Ricky,
I'm not sure what that, because your brother you should be. I'm not sure that there's a necessary correlation, but that's the connection people are drawing. Well, his brother can be a GM of a fairly successful, Vikings. You could debate the merits of Rick Spielman's tutelage over this time, but so that's the connection people are making. That's why his name comes out there. So I'd put him probably third on my list of those three that I mentioned. I think Tony Dungy would be my first choice, Louis Riddick second, and Chris Spielman third. And I'm sure there'll be more candidates that emerge. And like you said, it's hard to know because those names aren't as readily known or understood. Who the hot assistant GM is, or wherever those candidates come from. Part of that search process when Bob Quinn was hired, the Lions used the services of Ernie Accorsi to help them in the search for their new GM, who found them Bob Quinn. Bears fans here in Chicago might remember that name, Ernie Accorsi, because he helped them find your current GM, Ryan Pace, who everyone wants to have fired at this point.
That name sounds like one of the attorney commercials too on Chicago sports TV. But Ernie Accorsi, injury
yeah. Well, considering Bob Quinn was a horrendous pick and Ryan Pace traded up to get not Pat Mahomes or Deshaun Watson, but Mitch Trubisky. Now we see where the Bears are. I think Ernie Accorsi needs to be retired as a consultant for a GM hire.
I would say so.
So as long as I don't hear Ernie Accorsi's name involved with this search, I'll be happy. I do want to talk a little bit about the potential head coaches, even though I give it the caveat that I want the GM to make that decision based on his philosophies. But on the surface, my number one candidate would be Robert Salah from the defensive coordinator from the San Francisco 49ers, the defending NFC champion. He is proven to be an incredible defensive coordinator. The 49ers defense has been stellar under his regime, despite, sudden retirements, massive injuries. They just get it done. The big thing with him is he's from Dearborn, suburb of Detroit. He is openly been a lifelong Lions fan. That's an obvious connection. I think he would jump, plus the promotion from defensive coordinator to head coach of your childhood favorite team. I think that's a slam dunk. You could be nervous about another defensive coordinator coming in. I don't see any connection between Fat Patricia and another defensive coordinator. I think that was a personality issue. That was an incompetence issue. That was an issue. The Patriots, kind of smoke and mirrors, how they've dominated over these years with Belichick and Brady, where Patricia had nothing to do with it when it comes down to it. We've learned. So I really like the idea of Salah, or Salah, I believe people pronounce it. Hold, please. We'll edit this out. The other big name out there that people are talking about that I have reservations on is Eric Bieniemy, offensive coordinator for your Super Bowl champion Kansas City Chiefs. I would love to have him interviewed. He had been interviewed last year for several jobs and didn't get a head coaching job. I have no problem with him being interviewed. I'd be a little bit worried about his resume in that it reminds me a little bit in a weird way of Matt Patricia's, in that Bieniemy's the hot name and has had success around other people that it's hard to measure what his abilities really are when you have maybe the greatest quarterback we've seen in a generation with Pat Mahomes out there, and he doesn't even call the plays. It's Andy Reid is calling the plays for the Chiefs. So what is Bieniemy's role in that, admittedly incredible offense and innovative offense, but is he a hot candidate just because he happens to have the best quarterback I've seen in a long time and a fantastic head coach? So I'd be a little leery of that. I would not have a problem with him being interviewed and learning more about what he really does and how he contributes to the Chiefs offense. But
that offense, just because you brought it up, averages 425.8 yards a game. That means you have to have like so many 500-yard games in there to get to that average.
Yeah, it's
insane. It's a machine.
That's why he's such a tantalizing candidate, but you got to drill down to find out what he's really responsible for. So, I'm just really leery about those kind of things just because I've seen how that can backfire with Patricia.
And the other thing is, Matt Stafford's not Patrick Mahomes.
Exactly.
And there's not a Tyreek Hill, although Galladay is starting to come into his own. But you have to look at the whole picture, and you have to say, all right, well, I'm going to be able to go out and get this type of talent. Yeah. Right. I mean, because that's what it boils down to. Like you said, I think Mahomes is the biggest wild card. Anyone who's on the offense, who's involved in coaching the offense with the Chiefs. I mean, look at how many plays are just the guy runs down the field deep and he puts it up. He makes a perfect,
So he's running one direction, throws across his body, no look pass or underhand or whatever the fuck. He just improvises, and you just everything, that kind of creativity and athletic ability and poise in a quarterback package. I don't remember seeing it ever. So I kind of I want to not get too far over my skis and call him a Hall of Famer. But my God, I haven't seen many young quarterbacks accomplish what he's already accomplished so far. So you just don't know. Like you said, I mean, even Andy Reid, he hadn't won a Super Bowl until he had Pat Mahomes as his quarterback.
Yes, exactly.
So maybe he's
I think he's a very decent coach, but I think that in itself is the difference of having Patrick Mahomes on your team. Because Donovan McNabb is arguably, like, he was a great quarterback for his era, but he could never get him over the hump.
Right.
So,
well, other candidates I've heard would include Lincoln Riley, head coach, Oklahoma, I believe. That'd kind of be like the Cliff Kingsbury type move in Arizona. Hire the hot college coach and let him implement all new philosophies and offensive construction.
right.
That's interesting, and I'd be open to that. I don't know. I mean, Oklahoma is just always annoying to me. They compete in a terrible conference and always get accolades and usually end up in the playoffs somehow, and they're usually not that great. So I'm a little worried he's overhyped. But speaking of overhyped, this brings me perfectly into the final candidate that I want to talk about, at least. And this one just makes me laugh to no end. And you probably will too. When they say Jim Harbaugh should be the next coach of the Detroit Lions.
I hope so. Now we're talking.
I mean, I don't hope so for the sake of my Lions. I do hope so for the sake of this podcast, because it would be just fucking hilarious. Here's how the argument works. And there are some, you can poke holes in this, but I can see where they start from. But Harbaugh has clearly worn out his welcome everywhere he goes, but he's worn out his welcome in Michigan at the University of Michigan. He's proven to be a failure, I think unequivocally. But his record in the pros as San Francisco 49ers coach is it's stellar. He's 49, 22 and 1, I think are the final numbers, which is that is an enticing, that's a tantalizing number right there. You see a former coach, maybe it just didn't work for him, at Michigan in the coach, in the, recruiting or whatever. It doesn't work as well for him as it would for him to be a coach in the pros. Because you get rid of all the recruiting bullshit and you just get the X's and O's. I think he's a fraud. I think his first stint at Stanford was a success because of Andrew Luck. I think his success in the NFL was due to an innovative offensive system. I forgot his offensive coordinator at the time, but that's the guy that designed it. That's where the RPO became fashionable. And the 49ers, headed by Colin Kaepernick, were kind of on the leading edge of that RPO thing that kind of revolutionized offensive football. And that's now become very standard, not such a difficult thing for defenses to handle. So I think that was a kind of a gimmick that he rode for quite some time, rode the talents of Colin Kaepernick and parlayed that into what was supposed to be a dream job that turned into his nightmare at University of Michigan. So, like I said, I think it would be hilarious for the podcast, but it would be a disaster for the Lions. I think he's a fraud, and I think maybe in the perfect scenario he could come back to a NFL team and be somewhat successful. But the Lions are by no means a perfect scenario for anyone. So it's going to take extraordinary abilities to be able to right the Lions ship, and I do not believe Jim Harbaugh has those. But I don't know. That's probably enough Lions talk for now.
That's a lot of Lions.
Yeah,
talk. Wow.
We might not talk this much Lions for the rest of this season. Or the one thing that I do want to talk about is the Thanksgiving Day massacre, as I like to call it.
Two of them.
Yeah, our two teams traditionally play on Thanksgiving, and we predicted at least I did, a massacre, and I was assuming the Lions would lose and Patricia and Quinn would be fired Friday. They lost and they were fired Saturday. What I wasn't anticipating is that the Lions would give up 41 points and the Cowboys would also give up 41 points in their game. So I'm sure you've got some thoughts about your Cowboys on Thanksgiving Day.
Yeah, I did not see this. I did not see that game coming after how well they had played in Minnesota. They had 2 weeks to prepare for that Minnesota game too, so there's something to be said about that, I guess. The Redskins aren't that good of a football team that should have happened the way it did. I mean, it's really an embarrassment. I feel like I need a brown paper bag over here at this point. I anticipated a win against Washington to put them in first place in that division. I'm not sure what team the Ravens will be fielding this Tuesday when they play a Tuesday night special that was supposed to be Thursday night this week.
Yeah.
Because of the COVID cases. But let's just say it's almost like just say Lamar Jackson's back. So if that's the case, that's a loss then. I mean, I feel like at this point, they should just try to protect some of the stars from injury and not really worry about, focusing on the playoffs and as a probably one and done anyway, because they'll have a losing record going in and just like focus on, take the high draft pick and, look to next year when you've got your starting quarterback back and hopefully you have a better defensive plan than you've had this year. It's funny when you said Patricia's record, because I think at the pace that Mike McCarthy's going, he's on the same pace to have the same losing record as Matt Patricia. And it's kind of disappointing. You would think at least like a Mike McCarthy coach team would somehow be able to perform better, but that is just not the case. And I know there's a ton of injuries and things like that, but other teams find ways to overcome that. I mean, Christ, New Orleans continues to roll, and they haven't had their starting quarterback for 2 weeks. So it's just a really bad situation. And now the excitement I had after the Minnesota win has been completely removed after the embarrassing loss on Thanksgiving.
It was a rough Thanksgiving in a lot of ways.
And I'm just like, I'll just stick to probably watching. I mean, on Tuesday, since they're the only game, I'll watch it. But if they're on with someone else, I'll just probably watch Red Zone at this point in time. I don't think I'm going to invest a lot of time into the Cowboys. So that's all I have to say at this moment. I don't know what the long-term look is, but I mean, it's obviously the defense isn't working to let the Redskins put up 41 points. So that's a huge problem. And then I guess you got to ask yourself, maybe the Vikings really aren't maybe as they had been playing.
You thought it was.
Yeah, so I mean, they're, like I said, statistically, them and the Cowboys were very close. So I guess that played out in that game. So yeah, that's my thoughts on the Cowboys. Probably turn our attention to college football.
Well, I think before we do that, since we
got the Bears.
Yeah, since we are a couple of Chicago pricks united by our hatred for University of Michigan football and specifically the Chicago Bears. The Bears are playing my Detroit Lions this week. So it's a battle of a team who just fired their coach and GM versus a team where everyone wants their coach and GM fired. And that may happen sooner than later, considering the Bears are on a 5-game losing streak. They have still have Mitch Trubisky as their quarterback. What's that?
I'm telling you something right now, Ryan. You make that a 6-game losing streak after this weekend.
Wow. You think under the tutelage of Darren Bevel that the Lions are going to unite in against the former regime and come together and beat the fuck out of the Bears?
Yeah. I don't know that they're going to beat the fuck out of them, but they already should have beat them once. Yeah. So
if DeAndre Swift hadn't dropped that ball in the end zone, if they hadn't let Mitch Trubisky do a ridiculous fourth quarter comeback, the Lions should have won that first game many, many times over. And they did not. I could see similar things happening, considering the thing that drives me the craziest is Mitch Trubisky is garbage against the entire National Football League, except for against the Lions. His numbers against the Lions are Hall of Fame worthy.
I wasn't even aware of this.
I think maybe not that high. I think his quarterback rating is probably in the 80s or 70s overall. He's at like a 106 against the Lions.
Whoa.
Somehow his best games of the year are always against Detroit. So that makes me a little nervous. Makes me unbelievably frustrated that I mean, we all know Mitch Trubisky is a fraud and can't play the position except against my favorite team. It's just unreal. So I don't really know what to think. I don't really give a fuck if they win or lose. In fact, I'd rather have the Lions lose just to get a little bit better draft position. But it would be kind of nice to see them, come together and unite against the previous regime and be out from under that dark cloud and do good things from here on out. But yeah, like you, I'm not sure how much attention I'll be paying to that game, although it would be the only game on TV. I don't have the red zone right now. I might have that next year, but I'm in a transition period in my life where I might be selling my condo and moving out, so I don't have extra things like the red zone like you do.
I don't pay for my red zone, and
oh, nice.
That, so
that'll work. Let me have that subscription then. Give me that password.
All right.
Let's not talk about that too loud.
The other thing about the Bears too is, you talk about embarrassing losses. It could be the third embarrassing loss we can talk about this week. I mean, ended up being 41-25, but there were 2 garbage touchdowns in there. And I mean, basically the Packers offense just was able to do whatever the fuck they wanted over the great Bears defense that, you heard is still, we talk about this week after week. They're not strong. They're not that good.
Well, there were accusations that they gave up in that game. The defense literally gave up because their offense has no chance to do anything of note. So it was to the point where even if the defense was playing decent, they couldn't take it mentally, like where the team was at, and had actually given up in that game, which I had not heard in a long time, especially in Chicago, about a vaunted defense actually just not wanting to play anymore.
Yeah, and that's a coach that's lost the locker room then, if that's the case.
I think it's clear he has, and I think that's part of why everybody wants him gone, and especially the GM as well. It's just it's a total mess.
Yeah,
it makes me laugh.
And then you've got is Mac is he playing this week? Because he's been injured this week.
Yeah,
so
I don't know.
He may not. I mean, this game is ripe for the Lions to take a downtrodden, guaranteed rate pointing down team
nice.
to go ahead and hand them their 6th loss in a row. And I know you want the Lions to lose, but there would be obviously some pleasure in them beating the Bears.
It would be nice. So. Yeah. With everything at the Lions these days, it's mixed emotions. You can't win, you can't lose. It just, everything sucks. Whether you win or lose, you can find a dark cloud to hover underneath. I can't talk about the Lions anymore. Can we?
Yeah, we can move on. We'll move on to some college football.
Yeah, I think we should move to college because that has been fascinating. We do our weekly LDP top 6 to mock and mimic the college football playoff rankings. Tuesday's show was pretty boring, actually. The college football rankings were identical. At least the top. I think it was the top 7 didn't change from the previous week.
Right.
And honestly, my LDP top 6 didn't change at all either. There just weren't games of consequence. We've already got Notre Dame number 1, Alabama number 2, Clemson number 3, Ohio State number 4. That might be something we should talk about. Then we had Cincinnati, and I'm trying to remember now. We put Ohio State number 6.
Yeah,
we put.
We had Ohio State 6. We had
Texas A&M was
4. Cincy was 5, and Ohio State was 6.
Yeah, sorry, got that screwed up, but
that's all right.
So we basically differ with the college football rankings at number 1 and number 2. We just have those swapped. We have Texas A&M at 4. They have Ohio State at 4. We have Ohio State at 6. I think Cincinnati might be 7, but I don't remember now. But the real story that came out of Tuesday night's show was that Kirk Herbstreit basically was reporting. It almost sounded like he was reporting that Michigan was going to forfeit or not forfeit. They would just not play the game against Ohio State next week. do. He was basically accusing them. He said white flag. They're going to wave the white flag due to COVID reasons. Their game against Maryland has been already canceled for this weekend, but he was already speculating back on Tuesday that they would do the same thing against Ohio State for several reasons. One, that they don't have to embarrass themselves against a much stronger Ohio State team and further destroy Harbaugh's legacy. But the other part of that was even more treacherous and evil in that there is a very strong potential that Ohio State will not have played enough games to qualify for the Big Ten championship. The Big Ten rules this year stipulate you have to play 6 games in order to be in the championship game. And the college football playoff rankings, that committee doesn't have those same kind of rules. But if you have a team in Ohio State that only plays 4 games and can't play in their championship game, can you put a 4-win team in the top 4 teams in the country?
I don't think you can.
I don't think you can. I don't see any scenario where you could do that. So it was just, it's a little bit blown out of proportion. I'm being a little unfair to Kirk Herbstreit, who I do. A lot of people hate that guy. I think he's great. I also hate Michigan, but I also hate Ohio State. I feel like he's always been objective in his career. He's actually had to move out of Columbus, where he and his family lived for years. He had to move to Nashville years ago because fucking asshole Ohio State fans thought he was not being favorable enough to Ohio State in his commentary. So the harassment got to the point where he had to move to another state. So I think his record is pretty solid in that he's not biased against Michigan. He did come out and apologize for his comments. They're not taken out of context. He worded it poorly, and it's speculation that's been out there. It's a scenario people have talked about, but irresponsible people like you and me on social media can talk about that shit all the time. But
right,
when he talks about it on the college football playoff show on a national platform like that, that is lending credence to something that would just otherwise be wild speculation. And the way it came out is it almost sounded like he was reporting it, that Michigan will wave the white flag and fuck over Ohio State. What he was really saying is that there's a potential for that, and he was really frustrated with many things going on in college football these days with that potential. He's heard of other teams. That idea has come from the situation with Clemson and Florida State. I'm sure you've seen that, where it was last weekend or 2 weekends ago when Florida State's doctors said their team couldn't play because of COVID concerns. And Dabo Swinney and Clemson are saying, what the fuck are you talking about? Like you don't have, I don't know what the exact dispute was, but they wanted to play regardless. And what's interesting about that is Kirk Herbstreit has 2 sons on the Clemson roster right now that play for Dabo Swinney. So he's got firsthand knowledge of what was going on there, or at least Clemson's side of it. And they think that Florida State was being a little bit nefarious with their decision making, because make no mistake, Florida State was going to get their ass kicked, and they found a way to avoid that. So Herbstreit was applying that same logic to what Michigan could potentially do. Again, it's irresponsible for him to do that on a national platform like that. And he did come out and apologize. He came out later that night on his social media, on I think his Twitter feed, and posted a video. But that's the damage is already done. It's like the lawyer that makes some outrageous claim in court, and then the other lawyer objects, and the judge says strike that from the record and tells the jury not to consider that. Well, you planted the seed; it's out there. Herbstreit planted that seed on a national platform. So to come back and apologize and backtrack on social media is pretty useless. I love all of it. It's just something. It's funny. I think there's a huge possibility, considering Michigan's game has already been canceled this week. Every team in the Big Ten that has had to cancel a game had to cancel 2 games. So whether it's a strategic arrangement by Michigan to avoid Ohio State and to fuck them over, or if it's literally because they have too many COVID cases, either way, it's going to be an interesting, unbelievable scenario that I had never considered before.
Yeah, well, because of similar to what you were saying about the Big Ten just canceling games, so there's the even amount played. The same because of that canceled Florida State game. The Notre Dame does not have to play their game that was canceled earlier this season, and they announced that nine wins is enough to get into the ACC championship game. So Notre Dame is officially in the ACC championship game now.
Yeah.
Not that was really in doubt, but that announcement came because Clemson is they've got one final game to play. So it is going to be, looks like it is going to be December 19th, Bank of America Stadium, Clemson versus Notre Dame for the ACC championship.
Congratulations, you clinched your division.
Which makes things interesting because, and we brought this up already, if Notre Dame does lose, is it just Notre Dame plays Alabama the next week in the playoff because they just fall to 4? Because you can't take them out. I don't think you can take them out of the top 4 unless it's just a complete blowout, which it won't be. But
no, I don't see a blowout. I don't see a scenario where Notre Dame doesn't make the playoff now. I mean, we have them ranked number 1. We have for several weeks now. A loss to number 3 Clemson, at worst you'd be number 4. I don't see how you could move out of the top 4 at that point, especially when they've got Ohio State slotted in at number 4 right now. How would you even if Ohio State plays, they're going to, if they play this weekend, which is a little bit in doubt against Michigan State, they would have 5 wins. And if they don't play against Michigan, they'd only have 5 wins. They could have maybe, potentially 6 wins, and then the Big Ten championship, if everything works out for them, 7-0 with a win over, Northwestern or Indiana. That'd be their best win. But I'm trying to think of who would be in the Big Ten championship game against them.
Right.
I think it'd be Northwestern. You can't, if an undefeated Big Ten, boy, that's the only scenario. If they beat the fuck out of everyone, if they play these games and beat the fuck out of everyone, maybe that's the only scenario where Ohio State stays in if Notre Dame loses. But that's a lot of things that need to line up. So I think Notre Dame is in no matter what happens from here on out. So congratulations. You had a big win against North Carolina. I think that's part of what cements your place, at least in my mind, as number 1 in the country and cements you guys into the college football playoff.
Yeah, it was an interesting game. I mean, I don't think the game is tied at half if I don't know how familiar you are with the targeting rule in college, but Notre Dame got hit with another one that set North Carolina up for a touchdown and then got one of their best defenders kicked out of the game. So we were tied 17-17 at half. The good news is the defense rose to the occasion, and that was all the points North Carolina scored because Notre Dame went on to almost double their points, double down on their points in the second half and went 31-17. They completely shut out North Carolina, which is more like how I thought the game was going to go. I was very interested in the second half of the game to see how the defense was going to play and respond, and they responded like I thought they would. I just really feel like since Brian Kelly has been there, like this is really the most rounded football team that they have. Yeah. And this is the opportunity right now. It's this season. And the good news is even with the abbreviated season and whatnot, it's not like they got to go through a bunch of slouches to get there. So, so it'll be an earned national championship if they can finish it off.
Yeah, that was a quality win on Friday. I love the Friday after Thanksgiving Day games, and that was cool. That was a big matchup between Notre Dame and North Carolina. Quality win.
And coming up, and I couldn't even take Notre Dame in this spread. They are 33.5 point favorites over the Orangemen, Syracuse. this weekend, and
Don't fuck
Syracuse is
this up.
coming.
That would be unbelievable.
Syracuse is coming in at 1-9.
Oof.
The money line on Notre Dame is negative 10,000. What does that mean?
What does that mean?
You'd have to spend $10,000 to win 100.
You might not want to make that bet.
I mean, that's a straight up bet. And then
Wow.
If that's not good enough, Notre Dame starts the game losing 33.5-0. So
Yikes.
if I'm a betting man in that game, you take Syracuse and the points just because it may still be like 30 points or 20 some points, but I don't think it's going to be a complete bloodbath like that. But anyway, so Notre Dame should end up the season 10-0. So yeah, I mean it's all looking like cupcakes and rainbows for the Irish right now. So I'm pretty excited, being a Notre Dame fan. Finally coming to fruition again.
Well, on my side of things, I'm a Michigan State fan. It's been a mixed bag, but the positives are starting to outweigh the negatives with the new Mel Tucker, the bad motherfucker regime. He's back to bad motherfucker status, by the way.
I see that.
He had lost that for a couple games, but he's got it back after beating the number 8 team in the country, the previously undefeated Northwestern Wildcats. Michigan State kind of just beat them up. It was kind of incredible. The defense was stifling the offense, the running game. They ran for 195 yards. I forget on how many carries, but that was their best running game since 2015, which says a lot about why the Mark D'Antonio regime had to end. They had not had a successful running game for so long. Like I said, 195 yards. They basically imposed their will on Northwestern, who had previously, they had done the same thing to a stout Wisconsin team and had been undefeated in general. And a lot of people are starting to take notice, including the playoff committee, who ranked them number 8. You could debate if that may or may not have been fraudulent as evidenced by losing to Michigan State, but fucking A, for a first year, it's been up and down for Mel Tucker, but to beat Michigan at Michigan, the number 1 rival, that's all I said last week. That's all I needed to do. I don't care what they do from there on out, but to beat an undefeated top 10 team in your first year and do it in decisive fashion. They won 29-20, and it probably shouldn't have been that close. It's impressive, and it gives you a lot of hope, especially since they're doing it through the running game. And that is something that Big Ten football has always been. It's what Spartan football, when they're at their best, they run the fucking ball, and that's what they're starting to do. And if you can build that, that's something you can sustain success on. And I like what I'm seeing now. Again, they might lose the rest of their games, but he's got these 2 wins to hang his hat on that you can show some positivity in this new era of Spartan football. So I'm fired up.
Yeah, even with 2 wins, those are 2 wins you build upon. I mean, he beat 2 ranked teams this year. Michigan was ranked when he played them too. So he beat 2 ranked teams this year.
Well, and even with recruiting in the state of Michigan, those kind of wins mean a big thing.
Yeah,
especially against your number 1 rival, Michigan, who is a complete disaster. They lost this week against Penn State, who was previously winless. An 0-5 team came into Michigan Stadium and beat up on the Wolverines, which just hilarious. It couldn't be a better scenario for Michigan State fans watching, having the hope of a new regime taken off and watching Harbaugh falter. Like I said, that leads to recruiting advantages potentially right away.
Yeah,
you see the rudderless ship that is Michigan right now. Does a top recruit in the state of Michigan, or who is considering that, go in that direction, or go someplace that looks like it's turned the corner already and is onto something bigger and new and potentially awesome. So those wins this year may prove to be monumental in the development of Michigan State down the road.
Yeah, it's like I said, 2 big wins for them. Good news for you. I like it. I'm happy for you, Ryan.
Thank you.
Yeah.
So that's all I think I've got on the college game.
You have some shit you couldn't make up?
I do. And this does actually involve the college game. I'm not sure if you saw this, but University of Buffalo running back Jared Patterson ran. Brace yourself for these numbers if you haven't heard them already.
I have not.
He had 36 carries, which is, you hear about 36
that's
a
okay.
lot, but it's not outrageous. 36 carries for 409 yards and eight touchdowns.
That's a career day right there.
That's called Maction. University of Buffalo in the MAC. My God, I can't imagine a stat line that's any crazier than that. 8 touchdowns, 400 yards. I think you might be hearing this guy's name in drafts speculation soon enough. Jared Patterson.
All right.
Yeah, the only other thing I had under shit we couldn't make up, a segment we've carried over from our baseball podcast, funny shit we couldn't make up. This is a little funny. I'm sure you heard the Denver Broncos had to field a team this week that had 0 quarterbacks on the roster.
0. Yeah, that was that, and it played out like it should have.
Yeah. Well, the part that's funny to me, at least, is that quarterbackless offense. I forget the wide receiver's name who had to suit up as quarterback for that. Somehow they figured out to score 3 points, which is 3 points more than what the Lions scored in week 11 when they were shut by the Panthers 20-0. So that just tells you why everyone fired in Detroit.
There you go.
So that's all I've got for the week. I think we need to jump to the staple, the new favorite segment of the show everyone loves and is off to a fantastic start. Pete's upset specials for you gamblers.
Right.
Out there.
Yeah. So week 1, I said take the Cowboys straight up on the money line, and if you did that, you won. I know the money line was plus 230 when I saw it then. So bet $10, you win 23, and plus you get your 10 back. So that's 33 simoleons in your pocket. You know how to do the math. Week 2, before Lamar Jackson was considered out of the game, I had said, you have got 2 options in the Ravens game. I said, I thought the Ravens were going to win straight up with Lamar Jackson over the Steelers because John Harbaugh has a real, he just understands Pittsburgh so well from playing them over the years that he knows what to do to disrupt them. And then I said, but for sure at plus 5.5, you need to take that. You need to take the spread. Now, if I'd come on and done the show once I heard Lamar Jackson was out, I would have told you guys just take the spread, which is what happened. If you took the spread, you won. It was a very close game somehow. I don't even understand how it was that close with RG3 manning the ship. But the Steelers, again, they're undefeated, but it's sort of like that Big Ten undefeated thing. It feels like they should have lost like 3 times already, but they've found a way to win. So I guess that's, at the end of the day, that is what it is. But they should have lost to the Cowboys, and they found a way to win. And the Cowboys, as we see, are not a very good football team. So, like, I don't know what's up with the Steelers, but I feel like when it rolls around to the playoffs, they're not gonna be there in the end. But anyway,
yeah, there's a lot of talk about them being the most overhyped, undefeated 11-0 team in history, and
yeah,
I kind of see where they're coming from. It's hard to be 11-0 though in the NFL, no matter how they do it. So
it's true. It's true. Not every win's pretty, and then in NFL, unlike college, there's no style points. So, but here's your upset of the week. And I was just talking this team up and saying how they haven't missed a beat since they lost Drew Brees, the New Orleans Saints. But I believe Matty Ice and the Atlanta Falcons are going to beat the New Orleans Saints straight up this weekend. It's even Vegas is a little iffy on this game. The Saints are only 2.5 point favorites in this game, which you'd think it would be a much larger spread based on how Atlanta has played overall this season. But Atlanta is starting to trend upward offensively, And I just see, as Admiral Akbar would say, it's a trap. And
It's a trap.
It's a trap game for the Saints, and I think they're going to take their number one ranked defense, as in yards per game, in there, and they're gonna lose. They are going to lose to Atlanta. So that is your lock pick of the week. Will I move to 3-0? I don't know. We'll see.
Yeah. Listen up, kids. If you want to win some money, listen to PV over there. He's got the numbers. Well, I think with that, we're going to wrap up episode number 7. We can find us on social media at Limp Ditkas on Twitter, Instagram, and Facebook. You can find us at limpditkas.com. That's where you can get to our YouTube channel. Check out all these episodes. But you can find the podcast anywhere you want to find a podcast. We are all under the umbrella of our made-up Word Hole network. That includes our baseball podcast, Major League A-Holes. You can find that everywhere you want to find a podcast. And we're adding a new podcast or a new vlog, I think you would call it.
Yeah, I would just call it a vlog. That's all I just do videos on
Pete's
YouTube.
Food Frenzy. Yeah, you review food selections, a lot of good sandwiches, pizzas, burgers.
Look for a new post coming, should be this weekend, of a very hard to get pizza in Chicago.
Ooh.
So
you can find that all under Word Hole on Twitter, and I think we're gonna have a LinkedIn page here soon. So
yeah, I'm working on it.
All right, check it out. So yeah, you can find us all over the place. So do it. Rate, subscribe, review. We love it. So one more time to mock Matt Patricia's ridiculous tagline. I'm going to say this is dagger time. We out. Peace.
Definitely was his dagger time.
Yeah.
Peace.